Hi, everyone. I'm Reverend Nikki Happy, the Director of Marketing and Engagement at One Spirit, and I am sitting here today with Reverend Leslie Reambeault. How are you?
I'm great, Nikki. It's really good to be here with you.
Thank you. And we're here to discuss your upcoming workshop that's focused on grief. But
Yeah,
before we do that, can you just share a little bit about who you are and the work that you do?
sure. Well, currently I'm a second year dean at One Spirit in the seminary program, and it's my third year as a second year dean, and I was a first year dean before that. In my day-to-day life, I'm a psychotherapist, and I have an eco-spiritual psychotherapy practice, and I also provide spiritual companioning. Um, my newest area of inquiry I'm really excited about, it's psychedelic assisted therapy.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And so tell us a little bit about this workshop.
Mm.
What inspired you to create this workshop? And I know that we're in the middle of this pandemic that's ongoing and that there are so many people suffering and through loss and grief. But can you share what's your inspiration behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, grief seems to, in general, to be sort of the uninvited guest in our lives. It's there all the time. We're all getting a good taste of it now during this time of pandemic, but really, grief is with us in every moment. We always have had losses, even from childhood, and grief is the response to any loss. So sometimes grief, masquerades itself. It sometimes can show up in people's lives as anxiety or depression or even physical symptoms and syndromes, some autoimmune diseases, and as numbness. So grief is all around us all the time. And there's never a bad time to take a look at grief. And so I thought we're all in the middle of this grief syndrome right now. And this would be a very good time to take a look at what brings us to grief and how we might be with it.
Grief syndrome. I've never heard it expressed that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so, can you just walk us through the experience for the participants that will take the workshop?
Yes, and let me say, I have it in my mind's eye. I've had it for a good long time now, and I find that really in my dreams, it's morphing. So I'll tell you what I know about it now, and it might not be exactly this, but it'll be pretty close to this. So over the course of the day, it's my intention that we use the framework that Francis Weller, who is a psychotherapist and has been working in grief for decades, that he has developed. He's talked about the concept of gates into grief. And he's decided that now he says there are six, but he's written about five. What we would like to do then is take a look at these grief gates and see how each of us has been impacted by the contents of these areas of grief. So we're going to take a look at it. We're going to have time in small group. We're going to have time in large group. There's going to be a lot of interaction and sharing in this. And at each gate, I hope that we can together come and find a way to move through and ritualize grief in that particular gate. It's really important to realize that we, in this culture especially, do grief on kind of a secret and personal basis. But really, in order to process grief, we need to be in community. So that's what we're going to do for that day, is come in and create community so that we can deal with our grief.
And so, what do you want the takeaway to be for participants?
I want there to be, hopefully, it sounds a little bit contradictory, but a comfort in being with grief, in knowing that it is not unusual, that there's no particular way of having to go through grief, that it's a really individual process. And we take that individual experience into community and connect in that way. Because as humans, as I said, we all have experienced loss. So I want us to be in some sense of comfort with grief, and also to know that we can actually use grief as a springboard into being open and vulnerable for the other things that are in life, like joy and transformation. Well, what I'd love to say to people is to not be afraid that this will be an overwhelming experience. That's not going to happen. We're going to be able to deal with grief as we each can deal with grief. So I invite everyone, because we all have had this experience, and just come and join with us and create this beautiful community.